The day, the week, the show, and apparently my furnace must go on.
That's why it's a legend.
It is. Actually, I know the reason why. This always happens, and I always forget. So in between where my office is upstairs and the studio downstairs, I have to walk in front of the thermostat. And it usually, like, I go start working at about 8, and then we do this at about 9, and I get up in the and the thermostat's like, "Oh, you're still here. We better make sure the house is warm." And here we are.
You think it has like a Google style surveillance thing going on?
Oh, I'm sure it does. I'm sure Google knows everything I do and talk about or whatever. So, yeah. Speaking of Google, though, they've got the litigations. This is actually a really big deal. So, for those who aren't aware,
a huge deal.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, Sonos is suing Google. Apparently, Sonos went to Google, or at least according to their story. We haven't heard the whole story. We've only heard Sonos' side, and they did what any large company would do, and they went to the New York Times and got a nice write-up about why they're suing Google. But they went, apparently, many years ago, and I tend to believe this might be right, they went to Google and said, "Hey, we're building these speakers. We want to include your digital assistant," and they showed them the technology. And I don't know if they shared their technology with them or whatever, but now Sonos is suing. Yeah, Sonos is suing them, saying, "Hey, you basically just ripped off our multi-room, multi-speaker setup for your Chromecast stuff, and we would like some dollars."
Well, yes. I mean, so yeah. This, and by the way, Amazon did exactly the same thing. So
yeah, but it's interesting why they're suing Google, though. Did you catch that?
I thought it was because they could only afford to sue one of them.
Well, yeah. Well, so this is a little bit of speculation. So they said they sued Google because they looked at all the patents and said that Amazon had a stronger patent portfolio than Google did. Oh, okay. But I also think there might be them looking at their data and saying, "Look, if we got to lose one digital assistant on this thing, would we rather lose the Amazon one or the Google one?"
This is the precarious position that they found them in. If you haven't done it, you should read the New York Times article. There's a lot of detail in there around a lot of stuff. And to Brad's point earlier, I mean, Sonos, in order to expand, needed to work with any company that makes, at the time, made music services, right, to get that stuff on their devices. And for that to work at the time, they had to disclose to Google and to Amazon and, to Pandora and Spotify and whoever else. None of these companies who were speaker competitors at the time.
Right.
How the protocols work, how the system works, et cetera. And then Google and Amazon start coming out with smart speakers, which, of course, they sell for next to nothing because they're subsidized by the advertising and all the other stuff that they do. Sonos's cheapest speaker is $200, typically, not on sale. When Google and Amazon started coming out with these devices, they, use packet sniffers and blah, blah, blah. And they're using exactly the same thing we use. Like, it's exactly the same. They stole it. Like, they clearly stole it. And this is a tough one for me personally because I sort of standardized, for lack of a better term, on Chromecast audio, which, by the way, Google has since discontinued, which I find to be interesting. And I wonder if maybe related. But of course what it's probably more related to is that Google makes their own speakers, right? So now what Google has is it's way more lucrative to sell your own speakers and or partner with third parties to sell speakers based on your platform than it is to sell like a $30 dongle, right, that works with dumb speakers. Although that system works quite well. In fact, few people probably remember this, but the initial Sonos device, which I don't even know if they sell anymore, it's kind of like a little cube-looking thing. It looks like a NUC, actually, that connects dumb speakers to the Sonos, ecosystem. So if you have like good speakers or a stereo system and you want to integrate it with a Sonos wireless speaker system, I think you could probably still buy that, I guess. But the Chromecast audio, I think, was apparently like a direct rip-off of that. Google or Amazon, by the way, just last fall, if I'm not mistaken, announced their own version of this thing, which is just a dongle again to connect to whatever speaker to get it into the Alexa thing.
Yeah.
Sonos has identified in Google's case over 100 patents that they're violating.
Wow.
And on the Amazon side, it was fewer, but several patents, whatever it is. But this is bad. This is bad. But I don't know. This kind of thing happens all the time. This is a really high-profile example of it. You know, the New York Times article mentions some things that Apple has done recently, some things that Amazon has done recently with other companies, cloud-related. Like there's a company called Elastic that Amazon didn't just steal the idea from, but stole the name, because there's actually something called, you know, AWS Elastic now, apparently. So, yeah, this is the problem with big tech. You know, they are voracious, they're powerful, they have tons of money, and they can just run at will over the rest of the industry. I mean, that's, you know, this is the Microsoft story all over again.
Yeah. What are the odds you think, that if they find out that, like, hey, they really did do all this, that Google just buys Sonos?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the deal is with Sonos, whether they would accept that as kind of an outcome, like some kind of a billions of dollars of payoff. I would say, first of all, Apple should have bought Sonos years ago. How that didn't happen is just a hubris thing on their part. And I'm sure, you know, knowing Apple, they probably did create their own thing on their own, like AirPlay. Yeah,
the HomePod, Paul.
I know.
Flourishing.
I imagine if Apple had this lineup of Sonos speakers instead of a HomePod.
Oh yeah,
it's astonishing, but whatever. I sort of feel like Apple. Sorry, it's too many companies. It's too early in the frickin' morning too. That Amazon and Google in particular are kind of almost too far down this road. Like, I don't think the Google speakers are particularly good. You know, it looks like the Amazon ones are starting to be good. Like that Studio, what do you call it? Echo Studio looks like it might be pretty good.
Yeah.
So how do you step back from that cliff? I mean, I don't know.
I was trying to look up what Sonos market cap was. So yeah, it's not that much.
No, either one of these companies could use petty cash to buy this company.
Yeah. So their market cap, for people who aren't staring at it like I am, it's 1.7 billion.
Sonos sold 6.1 million speakers in a year. I don't remember if it was both Amazon and Google. I know Amazon sells more speakers, so maybe this is Amazon, but Amazon or Google sold that many in a quarter. Now, obviously, most of those are $30 a piece of crap speakers. They're not the awesome quality, whatever Sonos stuff, but there's your difference. I mean, and that's what's happened. That's what they're doing to Sonos. I mean, Sonos has always been a high-end company. Maybe it's a little unfair to worry about that kind of thing, but these companies are moving into audiophile territory, right? Google has HomeMax, which I don't think is very good. Yeah, I mean, they're making Sonos quality speakers, or they're getting there, right? So, yeah, this is a big deal.
It is. So we will see how this one plays out. This isn't going to be resolved more than likely anytime soon, because I would imagine that they tried to get some money out of them prior to going to court.
Oh, they did. Yeah, that's part of the story. They actually went to Google and said, look, you're violating all kinds of our patents. We've come up with a licensing agreement that I think makes sense. And Google came back and said, here's a licensing agreement we think makes sense. We're not going to pay you anything.
Yeah.
Also, we think you're violating our patents without telling you what those are because, you know, stalling tactic, whatever.
Yeah, of course. It's always without merit, I believe, is the standard line, that this lawsuit is without merit, is what every company will always say anytime they get sued.
I think it's with merit. I think there's merit. That's the problem, I think. It's pretty clear cut.
Yeah. No, I say the same thing. My kid's screaming, like, who ate the last cookie? And I say that accusation is without merit. I was over here the entire time.
And then you brush the crumbs off your... You're like, oh, I don't know how that got there.
Yeah, and Google's also in court, the bigger court, the Supreme Court, still arguing this Java thing. So that's...
Yeah, so that decision's going to come down before the middle of the year, or I guess before July. Maybe the end of July, I'm not sure. But yeah, so they filed a brief this week explaining, you know, why this is so important. And it almost kind of comes down to the notion of copywriting like an idea. You know, in other words, it's not okay. Like I'm making like a Notepad clone, right? For example, right? So if Oracle wins, you could make the argument that Microsoft could sue me and say you can't make something like the thing we made, even though I don't have access to their source code and I'm not, I haven't stolen any code, you know, or whatever. I'm just making something that looks like it. It's kind of like that level of a problem. And although in Google's case, of course, they did take huge chunks of source code, but wasn't Java open source? I thought that was the point of it. Like, they chose Java because they
Yeah.
could do this. I mean, it's not like they were like, like, like we're just gonna steal it. Like, I mean, I thought that was the reason they chose Java in the first place.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
we will see how this all shakes out. As with everything in the legal system, it'll show up eventually.
Well, I mean, these companies are huge, and Google, as a huge company, is going to be involved in a lot of lawsuits. I mean, it's just the way it's. There's no escaping that. But at least they got that whole employee thing figured out. You know, they should be fine.
Things are just
The
going.
founders aren't going anywhere. Everything's great.
Yeah, there was. I keep thinking about whenever we bring up Google. I think it was Sergey back, like way back when Google had like 1,000 employees. There was a story out not long ago that he used to walk through the offices with like a metal bat or stick or something, and he had a book, and it was called "Why Big Companies Fail." And he was obsessed with the book, and he would like smack a desk and like point to the title or something at people and be like, "This is why big companies fail." And maybe that's why he left. He's like, we're now a big company, and I'm just kind of out of here. Like,
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, remember the mythology of Amazon is that this company was so cheap that they would requisition thrown out doors and use them as desks.
yeah.
They would put them on, I don't know, concrete blocks or something. It was like, that's a desk.
Yep.
You know, and look, that's cute. And it's a great story. And we all love the whole, Apple was started in the garage, whatever. Yeah, you can't. That kind of culture doesn't persist. Like
No.
it's impossible.
It's
You know,
fine when
this-
everyone has an ownership in the company and you're trying to scrap by it to get to that big point. But when you're 100,000 plus people, that doesn't really work.
These are the Google founders skydove into a presentation.
Oh yeah,
Like,
forgot about that.
This is not the same. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry. It's you can talk about being googly all you want, but like they are it's gigantic, tens and tens of billions of dollars in revenues every quarter.
No, I think that there will eventually, I'm sure somebody's writing it, I hope, or making a movie about just the founding of Google, kind of bringing up all the way pretty much until this point, I guess, or maybe somebody waits until after they get through this turmoil and see how they kind of overcome legislation, maybe if it's coming for big companies, big tech or whatever. That's always
By the way,
on the horizon.
you just reminded me, on a semi-related note, there is a documentary that I found on the Apple thing, but it's probably available, wherever.
On the
called
Apple thing.
On the Apple. Well, what's it called these days?
iTunes?
What's,
Okay.
Is that what we're calling it? iTunes?
Oh, I didn't know.
don't
I genuinely, I didn't
Sorry.
know if you meant the new like Apple Plus or whatever their TV service is called.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. It's something you can purchase or rent. It's
Okay,
called
gotcha.
General Magic, and I strongly recommend that you, Brad, too, and anyone listening, just watch this documentary. So General Magic was a company. It was created by Apple to investigate next generation mobile technologies in the late 1980s. They invented everything that we use today on smartphones. Everything. It's incredible. And the people that were on this team were most of the original guys that worked on the Mac, and then everyone who went on to become anybody in Silicon Valley, from Andy Rubin, who made Android, the guy who started Tony Fadell, the guy who started made the iPod and then went and started Nest, the guy who created eBay, like the person who was the first CTO of the United States of America under Barack Obama, that woman, whatever her name was. Like it's a list like 20 deep or more. And there's a great part in it where there's a home video someone shot of some party at the company, and they highlight every single person who they are. It's crazy. It is a who's who of who shaped this industry. And this thing cratered completely, like decades ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And they got screwed in part by Apple. Like Apple wanted to, do something with their stuff. And John Scully at the time, CEO of Apple, saw what they were working on, and he created a competitor within Apple to it called the Newton. And of course, they were really burned by that because he basically stole, half of what they were working on in a half-assed way and created something that they did ship, but then, created itself as well. So anyway, you were talking about the beginning of Google, and the Google guys are not part of that, but basically everyone else in the industry is like, it's really worth watching. Definitely everyone should watch that.
Well, once I finish said basement and I have a nice
Yes.
set up in a couch.
Sit down with some chamomile tea in your new room, and
Oh no, there's gonna be scotch and only scotch for about 2 months. It's just gonna be.
it'll be a mug. The point is, no one has.
It won't even be. It'll just be like a
It'll
coffee
be like
mug.
one of those like tailgating thermoses with a handle on the side of it.
Yep. I got through half of priming the basement. Painting sucks. Like, I hate painting. And so I'm going to...
I hate everything that you're describing.
Well, that's also true. So I'm hoping to get the other half primed. And then start painting with, like, finishing paint. What's tomorrow? Maybe Thursday if I'm lucky. So if you see a little... Like, this is kind of
Flecks
weird.
of paint in your hair.
Yeah, I was about to say, I haven't got my hair cut. I was going to get it cut today, but I'm like, if I'm going to be painting ceilings,
Yep.
I'd rather not, like, get my hair cut.
Right.
Yeah, you know
Plus,
what I mean.
then you'll have to get comment. I don't know who cut your hair, obviously, but like someone's going to be like,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
I don't know if you're going gray or you've got some sort of disease, but there's something's
Right.
happening.
I'm going to cut it off, but I don't know if that's going to solve.
I'm just going to put these gloves on.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, you got anything else for today?
Not really. I mean, I put up actually I haven't put up the other one. I put up a couple of news stories, or I will put up by the time this happens. Just two quick things. Google is somewhat ratcheting back that security disclosure thing that Microsoft has run afoul of so many times. They never mentioned Microsoft, but
No,
I feel like this was clearly in response to Microsoft complaining so many times. And also, this is kind of odd, but Intel is helping Google bring Project Athena, which is this Intel spec for high-end mobile PCs, which is clearly designed to fight back Windows and ARM.
Yep.
By combining the performance that Intel's always been famous with instant action, power management, long battery life, connectivity, 4G, 5G is still optional, but that's part of the spec, and then certain form factor types and so forth. But they're bringing it to Chromebook. Right. So this week at CES, apparently Asus and Samsung both announced Project Athena based Chromebooks. So these are like $1,000 Chromebooks, right? And you got to think like Chromebook, has done very well in education, but I don't think it's done very well anywhere else. And it's almost like they're like, okay, we're going to have to go after this same thing that was successful in the Windows world, like basically premium PCs. So I don't know who's looked in the market for $1,000 Chromebook, but
yeah, I am not.
No, I'm not either.
No.
I don't know. Anyway, kind of interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. If you got $1,000 and you say I want a Chromebook,
Yeah, right. If you like throwing money away,
yeah.
Samsung can help.
All right, everybody. That wraps it up for today, and we'll catch all of you right back here tomorrow.